Hello, everybody. This is Megan,
And this is Alana.
and welcome to Tea Time Crimes. Hello.
Good morning.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
Good evening. Oh, I said it first.
How are you doing? You've been traveling all week. How you feeling?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right.
You're just a high-powered executive.
Okay, relax.
Like if this was the 80s, you'd have shoulder pads and a power
for
suit.
sure.
And you'd be like, tick, 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 tick. That's your high heels hitting on the tiles.
God, my feet crumble to dust. No, it was good. It was a long week, but it was overall positive.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you're back. I don't like it when you're gone because the texting significantly decreases.
It does. It does.
I have a little bit of a confession to make, a dumb moment. So you know how you got my son a bunch of Christmas presents for Christmas because you're so nice like that? And you got him a box of stamps. Like, not postage stamps. We're not really
like
into mailing letters.
Like cookie stamps or like putty stamps, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that cookie stamps existed in this world. And I thought it was really weird that it didn't come with an ink pad. And I ordered an ink pad and waited for it to get here. Yeah, and it got here. And we were inking and stamping until suddenly I realized that they were in fact for baking and that they were for cookies and suddenly, here's the part I'm most embarrassed about. Suddenly, the frickin' cookie cutter in the box made sense. I thought it was so weird that 12 stamps came with a cookie cutter.
Wow.
It literally comes with a cookie cutter. And I was like, this is so random. Why? But I was like, why is there a cookie cutter in here? I don't, I thought maybe it was for Play-Doh.
You should have just texted me.
Oh, I knew what would happen. I was afraid I'd text you and then you'd be like, it didn't come with an ink pad. And then you'd order like an $80 ink pad on Amazon and I'd get it in 2 days. And I was like, nah, I don't want her to, she'd freak out.
It's for cookies.
Well, that I didn't consider. I did not know. I thought the cookie cutter was for, I thought, that must be like if the kids are playing with Play-Doh and then you can stamp the Play-Doh.
Oh my God.
But it just did not dawn on me. I went back and read the stupid box too. And it just says 12 stamps and a cookie cutter. I did not know that they were for baking. It didn't even enter my mind.
That's perfect.
So dumb. But honestly, I think the ink is better. They're really great ink stamps.
Okay,
and
glad to hear it.
We will use them a lot more than me baking cookies and stamping them. So that's what we're doing with them. These stamps really are throwing me for a curve because then we're looking through the stamps.
So funny.
And my son said, "Oh, there's no pig." I'm like, "This is a pig." He looks at me as if, like, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Mommy, that's a dog." I'm like, "Dang, these stamps really got me messed up." I was like, "Yeah, you're right. You just do what you want with these stamps. I should never touch them again."
Oh my God.
I know. I don't know. I have like a mental block on these stamps, man.
So funny. Well, I'm glad they're still useful in another way.
Yeah, I'm so I literally just saw all the stamps and was like, okay, well, where's the ink? Just that's the only place my mind went. So
funny. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
And I didn't even know it was a cookie
cutter.
No. I know. I didn't know it was a cookie. It's just like a metal circle. I thought maybe that was something that I don't know. I was thinking it was like part of the stamp. I wasn't even like paying attention after we'd already committed to it being ink stamps. But yeah, it was embarrassing. It's just dummy. Dumb.
That's really funny.
Yeah. No.
I mean, you figured it out eventually.
Yeah, a little too late. Now all the stamps are covered in ink. Now I'm like, is it even safe to use them for cookies?
Probably not. Probably not.
Well, they're dishwasher safe, so I could probably wash them. And I used, it's a super kid-friendly ink pad. But
okay.
I don't know. Anyway, we've got a lot of awesome ink stamps that are happening right now.
There we go. There you go.
Yeah. So thanks for that gift. And maybe
you're welcome.
You should give me like a complete overview of every gift that you give me in the future.
Here's the purpose.
Good Lord.
How is Harlow doing? He just
Oh, because he
got his
fixed.
knackers chopped.
Stop saying knackers. He's good. He's just too hyper, and so we had to go back to the vet and have it glued. The incision glued a little bit, and
Did he rip it open, or did he with his mouth, or by activity?
No, he's actually not touching it at all. He just wants to play so much, and he's jumping off of the first step of the porch to go outside, and he's running, and he's jumping on the fence, and he's chasing Banksy, and it wasn't bad. It was just a tiny bit open, so they fixed it, but he just is, and it's annoying because we have to keep him away from Banksy a lot, and so now his mindset is, okay, well, if you're not gonna let me play with Banksy, then you have to play with me. So he's been pawing at me every day around 3:00. He just jumps on my computer.
Nice. He said, "Work time's over."
Works that, and he's been sending slacks to people. He goes nuts. So he's been jumping on me as if I'm supposed to be Banksy. It's because there's nothing to like for that. I'm taking him on walks and everything.
Set him on your son.
Well, he doesn't.
It's like same energy level.
Well, I mean, he's really jumping because he wants to play with us like he does with Banksy, because that's been taken away from him for now. So, but he's doing fine. It's just a matter of waiting him out. And
well, isn't Banksy gonna go get him chopped off?
Yes, soon? I know it's gonna go a little longer. Banksy's getting fixed in a little bit here.
Oh boy! Too,
so. Yeah, and then it'll be done. Thank goodness. But enough about that. Let's slide right into that tea review, ma'am.
Let's slide in. I like to listen to a tea podcast while I'm getting ready.
What podcast?
Well, there's a bunch of different ones. The ones I was listening to today is Floating Tea Leaves, I think.
Ooh, pretty.
And I think they grow their own tea and sell their own tea. I'm not totally sure. I listen to it infrequently.
You should review some of their tea.
I should. I love the lady on it. She's so funny, but she also knows tea really well. And I mean, you'd probably hate it because she's talking about how the tea was so thick, her throat pipe wasn't big enough. I was dying.
Sounds
just
amazing.
Of you. Yeah, no,
I can see
it's
where
great.
you're getting
I'm learning a lot.
Your inspiration.
Yeah, she is very inspiring to me. Okay, today we're going with an herbal tea, or some people say herbal tea. It is. They do. Today's is called Lemon Delight. And just imagine at the end of the delight, there's a little squeeze of lemon.
You love lemon.
I do love lemon. Brighten up your day with the fresh, uplifting taste of this lemon-flavored tea. White
you really
hibiscus,
hit the U in that.
Because there's a U in it.
I know there is. I said, that's obviously the British spelling, and you really brought it home.
Yeah, I did. White hibiscus, lemongrass, lemon peel, verbena, and then it's an herbal tea, so no black tea there. So should have a very light or no body. It says, do not microwave, and I'm with you. Twinnings. We went over this. I don't remember how to say it. Okay. I'll give you one guess for what it smells like.
Oranges. Just kidding. Lemon. I craved lemon when I was pregnant to the point where I would just suck on lemon wedges.
Can we talk about how amazing your body was where it...
What?
Before
yes, we can. Excuse me.
Before you were pregnant, you were allergic to cheese. And then during and after, you weren't. It was like this amazing thing, and you could eat cheese, and it was the best thing ever.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it maybe a little differently. Like, it was a side benefit to needing a blood transfusion and having...
Oh, well, sure.
The lower half of me, like my spine and stuff, destroyed forever. But eating cheese
but
is
you can eat cheese. So.
But I can eat cheese. Yeah.
I mean,
the broken tailbone.
It's fine, yeah.
It's fine.
I mean, cheese. Sprinkle some cheese over it. Anyways, back to the tea. It has a little bit more body than I think, but it goes down really smooth. It's thin, right? It's not like taking up too much space in the mouth, not blocking the throat pipe, as she'd say. And it tastes very, very heavily of lemons. I'm trying to see if I can get another note here.
That's really all that's in it is lemon. I mean, I guess you could get a passing by of hibiscus.
Did I say there's lemongrass in it? Yeah, there is lemongrass. Oh. I get a note of that, but it's not a ton. This is just a great tea for all occasions.
Did you put honey or anything in it, or is it straight?
No, it's straight. Honey would go really nicely with this. Absolutely do not put milk in, you psychos out there. Putting milk in herbal tea. Don't do it. And if you do it, don't send me a picture.
I've done it a couple of times and she gets so mad. I really just do it for that reaction. I don't even care how it tastes.
No, but this is a everyday tea. This is every occasion tea. You don't have to do it at a certain time of day.
Every occasion.
Yeah, I mean, like,
whether you're getting married or whether you're just home on the couch, have our lemon tea. Something like that.
yeah, perfect.
Any
We
occasion.
got the commercial already for you. Twinings. Let's think here. I'll give it a zesty thumbs up.
Okay, lemon zest. Thumbs up.
Yes, lemon zest to be quite clear. This is a great tea. Highly recommend.
Cool.
All right, you've put a lot of research into this one, ma'am.
Yes, today we are talking about the unsolved murder of Malvina Krutz.
Oh, God.
This one, I'm slightly obsessed with this one. This one, I've been researching it for weeks and I can't stop wondering.
Yeah, you've told me, like, I can't stop researching either. And you're like, I need to move on to other cases to start, like, the work for them. And you're like, I can't stop digging into this one.
I just can't wrap my head around it. It gives me very Joan Risch vibes.
Oh, wow.
If you remember, that's one of our earlier episodes. And I don't understand what happened. So on January 29th of 1958, 48-year-old Charles Krutz comes home from work. He finds his 10-year-old son, Buddy, sitting in front of the TV. He's watching Wild Bill Hickox. And he says, "Hey, where's your mom?" And Buddy says, "Oh, she is doing my paper route for me today."
What?
And he follows it up with, "But I don't like the looks of the bedroom." And Charles is confused. And so he moves through the house and the bathroom door is shut. So he opens it and the shower curtain is shut, which is never how you would find that, only if somebody was actually in the shower. So he tentatively pulls back the shower curtain and he finds the body of his 41-year-old wife, Malvina Krutz.
No.
So I'm going to give you background and then I'm going to go, there's so much here to unpack. I'm going to go through the timeline of that day. I'm going to go through the evidence that they collected, the suspects that they spoke to, and then we can talk about what we think possibly could have been happening, what could have been going through her mind, who could have possibly been in the house fitting into the timeline.
Okay.
I'm going to post pictures of the floor plan too in the house on Instagram. And so Malvina.
Wait. Before we get started, I know this is not super relevant, but I'm just wondering what you think. So you're talking about the shower curtain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think after you shower, do you think it's better to leave it open or closed? Because I usually close it because I think it'll dry the shower curtain out better.
You know, I don't hate you for that comment because I actually was thinking the same thing. I was thinking, well, actually,
yes,
in our house, we keep it closed so that otherwise it gets kind of moldy if you leave it,
right.
if you open it.
If you bunch it.
Yeah, if it's bunched
no
in the
offense
bottom.
to people who do that. Maybe they just like scrub their things
or they have
more.
better ventilation in their bathroom.
Yeah,
but
that's
we
true.
always leave ours closed.
Okay. Yeah, so great question, Alana. That is 10 points. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's super relevant. Okay. So Malvina was born in Kentucky to Robert and Ada Mae Sanders on August 4th of 1916. And a few years after that, Malvina would welcome her brother Leland into the family fold.
Leland.
Sadly, though, Ada Mae didn't live a very long life. When Leland was 17 and Malvina was 20, Ada passed away. That's a pretty, I mean, they're not children, but it's still a young age to lose your mom.
Yeah.
A few years later, in 1939, Malvina married Charles Krutz. And Charles was a military man, World War II.
Yeah, right before the war.
Mm-hmm. And he was one of 11.
Oh, my
God. So Malvina goes from this tiny family
to
marrying into this huge family. And sadly, after Malvina and Charles get married a few years later, Leland actually dies in a training exercise for the U.S. Army at the age of 22.
Wow.
Yeah, so now Malvina only has her father left, and then she's got Charles' big family. And it wouldn't be until 1947, pretty good distance from the time they got married, until they had their first child. They would have one and only son. So his name is Charles Leland Krutz,
Oh,
but they called him Buddy.
gotcha.
Okay. Now, at the time of the murder in 1958, Malvina was a stay at home mom and she was super active. She's volunteering at Northwood Christian Church. She's an active member of the PTA. She seems like the type of woman who would wake up and have a big to do list
Mm-hmm.
and just go all over town. That is the impression I got from people's accounts of her.
Where are they living again?
She grew up in Kentucky, but by the time her and Charles had their little family going, they had
Yeah.
moved to Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. Got it.
And at that particular time, during that year of 1958, Malvina was immersed in a project. So December 16th, the family house at 5268 Guilford Ave had sustained a fire.
Okay.
And they needed to make repairs and do renovations. And Malvina was really going above and beyond. She was super excited about this project and trying to make it better than it was even before the fire.
Oh, cool.
And she was super proud of everything she'd been able to accomplish during such a short time, because the fire happened December 16th, right? You think you've got the holidays in between, which is probably hard to get much done. And then it was
Yeah.
only the end of January and she's making incredible progress. And Malvina was described as typically Southern, was the quote from a lot of the papers, which, I mean, I guess is Kentucky the South?
Yeah, of course it is.
Is it? I never know where
I mix up Kentucky and Tennessee all the time. I really have to confess that.
Oh, well, I never know where the line is drawn, but that paints a good picture. I imagine she's probably really good with people, friendly,
Yeah.
Really good with hospitality.
Sweet tea.
So she was described also just as friendly rather and very active. Like, those are the adjectives that are being thrown around about her. Now, if we go to the day of the murder, this timeline is, just sit tight. So January 29th, Buddy leaves for school around 8 o'clock. They live very close to the school. He attended what was at the time called Public School 55, and he would just
It's
walk.
a creative title.
It's been changed now. Charles also left for work, but I don't know what time, but he's out of the house. So Malvina is alone in the house. Little is known about what Malvina did after Buddy left the house, but it's assumed that she had a list of things to do for the renovation, things to do around the house. That's what people expected of that day.
Okay.
The next spot in the timeline we have is just after noon. So at that time, Buddy would come home for lunch, which I was shocked about, but it was something that was really common in the 50s, and people would come home if they lived close enough. And they often would have an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, and that would be tacked onto their recess as well. So I'm guessing Buddy would come home, grab a quick bite to eat, and then I don't know if this was how it was for School 55, but I'm saying that's usually what it was. Like, it was a full hour, but you had it was including playtime. Like, they didn't have a leisurely lunch. So Buddy comes home right after, I assume he got out at 12. So he's home, just a few minutes later. And as he walks into the house, he sees his mother's 1955 Buick in the garage. And there's a sandwich waiting for him on the table. It's noted later that the breakfast dishes were still in the sink, which I don't know if that was normal or not. I don't know who else would know that except Buddy every day when he came home. But it is noted. Now, Buddy does not see Malvina, but he does talk to her. She's in the bathroom with the door closed. And he speaks to her through the door, and she tells him, "Eat your sandwich and get back to school, and I will deliver your paper route for you today." I don't know, I'm paraphrasing, but this is essentially the gist. Shortly after Buddy got home around 12:10, the milkman stops by. And the front of this house has a screened-in porch, and then a front door. So I'm guessing he probably walked into the porch and was at the front door in the porch, because you wouldn't leave the milk outside if you had a place that was shaded. So he's at the front door, and Buddy answers it, gets the milk, and the milkman also saw Malvina's car in the garage. So he backs up Buddy's account, and he says that he saw Buddy talk to Malvina from what he thought was talking through a door. And so their house is really tiny. It's a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and it's, about it's like 1,000 square feet. It's not very big at all. And from the front door, you would be able to see a straight shot to where Buddy would be standing if he were talking to Malvina through the bathroom door.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes sense that he would stand in that location. It's right by his sandwich. He'd be able to ask Malvina, "Hey, Mom, do you want anything else from the milkman?" And then he'd be able to turn and tell the milkman, "No, we don't
Yeah.
want anything
Yeah.
else."
Yeah.
So that's what the milkman reported. Now, Buddy pours himself a glass of milk, probably from the delivery,
Fresh.
right? And then he leaves. We don't know what time he leaves. Maybe the police do, but it was not reported. I'm assuming he was gone before 12:45 because 12:45 is the next detail in the timeline. At 12:45, the Krutz house receives a phone call from a woman named Mildred Warning. Now, Mildred is friends with Malvina, and Mildred and their friend Florence Kubert are supposed to come by the house at 1:30 to see the progress that Malvina has made on the
Oh,
renovations.
okay.
Now, this is where it gets very confusing. A gentleman answers the phone. It's not Buddy. It's not Charles. Mildred does not know who it is answering the phone. She says he's
Uh-oh.
courteous. She says he's polite. And she asks to speak to Malvina, and the man hesitates. He says, "Well, and then Mildred says she hears Malvina in the background. Now, what Mildred heard is very confusing. There are differing reports. Some sources say that she heard Malvina respond with, "Tell Mrs. Warning that I have to take Buddy to school and we'll pick her up at 1:30." Other sources say that Mildred reported hearing, "Tell her not to pick me up today." And so neither one of those statements really makes sense because one, Buddy's more than, I believe Buddy's already left. So Buddy's already gone and she's not going to drop him off at school to pick him up. Like it's a different, like she's not picking him up from school either. He walks home.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know why she would say, "Tell her not to pick me up today," because the whole point is that the women are coming over to her house to actually see the house. So they would never pick her up.
That's weird.
Yes, but the women do live close to Malvina. So Florence Kubert lives at 155 East 49th Street at the time, and Mildred lives at 5029 Evanston Street. And if you put it on Google Maps, like you start at the Krutz house, and it basically, with adding Buddy's school in there, it basically makes a perfect square. That would take maybe 7 or 8 minutes to do.
Oh, okay.
So it would make sense that Malvina would pick them up if she were actually dropping Buddy off at school, but Buddy's
Right.
already back at school.
But who's this guy? You think she's having an affair?
Who's the guy? So at some point in the call, Mildred says, "Tell Malvina we'll be there at 1:30." Now, it's often reported that Malvina talks after Mildred says that, which makes the next part of the timeline doesn't make sense either, because at 1:40, Florence and Mildred show up to the house. So there's a lot of, it's curious, why would they show up if Malvina had said, "I'll pick you up at 1:30," or "Don't pick me up today"?
What?
Either one, why would they continue to keep their 1:30 appointment? So I'm wondering if maybe the call was misrepresented and Mildred could hear Malvina in the background and then just said, "Well, just tell her we'll be there at 1:30."
Okay.
I'm not sure because the women show up anyway, which is strange. So around 1:40, they show up and they are seeing a car, Malvina's car, pulling out of the driveway as they're pulling up. Now, the driveway is narrow. Only one car can fit in it at a time. And it's along the left side of the house. It's, a one-way street that goes to the back, and that's where the garage is, and it kind of opens up in the back of the house. So some sources say they actually saw somebody run and get into Malvina's car. And others leave that part out and just say the women had to stop to let Malvina's car pull out because they would need to pull in. And at the time, Mildred said, "Oh, Florence, that's Malvina. Honk your horn." And as the car was going by, it was clearly a man driving the car. And Florence said, "Does that look like Malvina to you?" And then the ladies pull into the driveway and park. Now, there is a teenager in the neighborhood at the time who saw this interaction go down. So he saw the women pull up around 1:40 and he saw Malvina's car back out. He
Okay.
also said that a man was driving that car The only description he could give was that it was a black man. Florence and Mildred couldn't see because they said that it looked like a painter and that he had headgear on, which I don't know what that means. Maybe he had like a mask.
Headgear? A
Like
helmet?
maybe he had a mask, some sort of mask on for fumes.
Oh.
So they couldn't see his face. But they weren't alarmed because workers had been coming in and out of this house, and they often would take
Right, because all
Malvina's
the
car.
renovations.
Yes, they would often take Malvina's car to go pick up supplies.
Really? That's kind of weird. Maybe get your own van.
So the women go into the house. They wait for 20 minutes. No Malvina.
They go into the house. They're in the house.
Yes, they knock on the front door. Nobody answers. So they go around to the
open it.
back and
Okay.
it's unlocked, and they go in and they wait. She doesn't show. So they
She's
leave.
not answering when they're calling out?
Mm-mm. She is not. They leave a coat that they brought for Buddy on one of the dining room chairs, and they write a note, apparently a little bit of a nasty note because they were stood up.
Yeah.
And then they leave. Now, the next part in the timeline doesn't happen until 3:35. This is when Buddy arrives home from school.
She's already dead. She was dead when the ladies were in there.
More than likely.
They should have checked the bathroom.
So at 3:35, Buddy comes home from school. I'm assuming he probably ran into his bedroom and threw his book bag down and then ran to sit in front of the TV.
Yeah, classic 50s.
As he is putting his book bag away, that's when he notices his room is messy. The bed is not made, there's pillows on the floor, and his model airplanes have been knocked down off of his bureau.
Uh-oh.
That is why he says that comment to his father later. But he just goes and watches TV. And then he sits there until around 5-ish. There's varying times of when Charles came home. And then Charles arrives. And that's when he gets the comment about the bedroom. And that's where he finds Malvina. Now, as soon as Charles finds the body, he calls the police.
It would just be so scary. Like, I can't just imagine walking in and finding your dead spouse's body. I cannot even like comprehend.
No. So Malvina was found in a tub full of water. Her head was at the faucet end and her legs were turned to the side. Now, she was partially dressed. She's wearing a white blouse, which they described as a sweater material, a cardigan that is torn a bit in the back, and she has underwear on, but they're pulled down, and she has something on her feet. Some sources say sneakers, some say slippers. Her pants are not on her. Charles reported that both the body and the water were still lukewarm, which blows my mind and confuses the time.
Crazy.
Like, is that scientifically possible? And I guess people say it could be with the fact that
maybe
there was
if it's
a
not
body.
hot and it's not cold out.
Yeah, the medical examiner reports that Malvina had head trauma above her left eye, as well as abrasions on her lips, and they would later find scratches along her scalp. And it was reported in the papers that Charles also commented that he noticed bruising on her arms and legs. Now, they did testing, and their original theory was, of course, with the pants missing, that she had been assaulted, but the tests concluded that Malvina was not sexually assaulted.
Oh, that's good.
And the official death certificate states that the medical examiner believes she was knocked unconscious and then drowned because there was water in her lungs. So it's ruled as a homicide, and the initial cause of death is drowning. But then secondary to that is a traumatic subarachnoid hemorrhage. And he said really either one of those things. It's hard to say which was the actual cause. He believes because there was water in her lungs that it was drowning first. Now, there is a brief moment in the paper where they report that this could be an accident because Malvina had a back injury and sometimes her back would go out and she would just fall over and need help.
Why is her pants like that and her undies?
Right. It's quickly thrown out because also there's the bedroom. And it's clear to investigators that a struggle occurred in Buddy's bedroom, which is why I told you he found it kind of messed up.
Yeah.
So the toys, like I mentioned, are knocked off the shelves. The pillows are on the floor. The covers are pulled off the bed a little bit. And on the two pillows, there is blood and mucus stains. Not a lot, but droplets. And some believe that Malvina was placed on the pillows. Others believe they were used to put over her face. And one's wedged between the bed and the wall, and the other is on the floor. Now, behind the door a little bit, they find a soaking wet pair of toreador pants. And toreador pants they're very common for the 50s and 60s. They're basically like bullfighting pants, like they're the fitted kind of cropped pants that you'd see women wear with like the short tops.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they find her pants, they're inside out, they're torn, and they're wet.
What?
Now, when they remove Malvina, they will also find underneath her body 2 shag carpets that were from Buddy's room. I assume like small area rugs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hypothesized that her attacker used the rugs to drag her body into the bathroom. There is also a towel bar that has fallen off of the wall and is found in the sink. And a towel is found behind the kitchen door that is both damp and has some blood on it.
Jeez.
Additional evidence that's found this is like what they find just on first glance. Additional evidence that's found also in Buddy's room is a pencil, just like a number 2 yellow pencil, and it says White County REMC, Monticello, Indiana. They wonder if maybe the attacker had that pencil on him and it came off in the struggle.
Oh.
But not a lot of those pencils were made, but they were at the utility office, and so anybody who paid a utility bill could just grab one. So it really doesn't do much for them. But they think that the pencil was what caused the scratches along Malvina's scalp, and there was hair embedded in the pencil that they tested to see if it belonged to Malvina. The results of that test was never revealed, but 2 theories came about from it. One, that either the attacker kind of had the pencil in a pocket, right? Especially if he's a workman or something taking notes. And then, or that Malvina had it tucked behind her own ear, and because she was running errands, and then when she was hit, the pencil went into her scalp. Witnesses report that they saw, and this is a neighborhood, they saw 7 people, and the houses are pretty close together. They're not super far apart. They only saw 7 people approach that house that day. So enter that house that day, I'm sorry. So you have Mildred and Florence, obviously. You have Buddy, and then there were 4 workmen. And all 4 of those workmen were cleared pretty quickly. I don't know how they were cleared, but they were. Now, shortly after the murder, Charles Krutz starts getting phone calls from a mysterious woman around 9 o'clock at night, and she calls 3 times. And every time she asks for Charles, it's been reported that she would say either, "Is this the Charles Krutz residence?" or "Is this Mr. Krutz?" And every time he would say, "Yes, this is," she would just hang up.
What?
And this woman had a Southern accent, which was exactly what was described of the man who answered the phone Mildred spoke to. So police are curious because they both had a Southern accent. Was this woman somehow involved, or did she know the man who answered the phone and was trying to give information about the murder? And they actually posted something in the newspaper saying, "We fear that this woman's life is in danger. Please come forward," which I don't know that they really thought that, but they were trying to get this woman to come forward, like, as if saying, "Hey, you won't get in trouble, but come forward and tell us."
Right.
Now, the forensics, no sexual assault was found. I don't know how advanced those tests are, though, in 1958.
Yeah, it's not.
But 3 fingerprints were found in the house that did not belong to anybody they could account for. There was one on the master bedroom door, which is interesting because it seemed most of the stuff took place in Buddy's bedroom. And there were 2 on the bathroom door. A hair was also found on a bed sheet, and the only information they released about it was that it was believed to have come from an African-American person. That's it. That's all it said. So instantly the police go through motives. Obviously the first thing you look at is robbery. But no jewelry is missing, no cash is missing, and Charles lets the police know that they have over $200 that's just sitting in a dresser drawer, like in a little emergency fund, and that was still there. Malvina's purse was also hanging up. She always kept it in the same place. Nothing was taken. The
What?
only thing missing is her car. And the
Yeah.
keys sat in a bowl in the kitchen. They were always in the same place. She drove a 1955 two-tone Buick with the license plate AL4262. So they put out an alert for the car. It is found the next day. It's just abandoned 11 blocks away. The keys are not with it, and they're never found. Now, next thing they do, right, is they always look into the spouse. So Charles and Malvina were having marital problems.
Okay.
In fact, Malvina had filed for divorce on January 13th. And
wow.
the reason listed was marital misconduct and gross and wanton negligence of conjugal duties. And she stated this was for more than 10 years. So marital misconduct could be anything from cheating, abandonment, reckless spending, drug or alcohol abuse. It could be any of those things. And then people are assuming that the gross and wanton negligence of conjugal duties is referring to, being together like a man and a woman, as we say on this show. But it's more than that too. It could be, and I don't know what was going on, because when you go to a divorce lawyer, they're going to say, well, what you described to me falls under this. Maybe Charles just wasn't attentive. Maybe he just didn't, maybe he just wasn't nice to her. I don't know. However,
woman's gotten AIDS.
On January 17th, they were also scheduled to appear in court for a restraining order.
Against him?
Against Charles. So was he abusive?
What the heck?
But neither of them showed up. So Charles says they didn't show up because they had agreed to reconcile. And Malvina's lawyer confirms that, yes, that is true. They had agreed to reconcile, but that Malvina was a very frustrated woman. His words, frustrated woman.
Okay. What woman can you not characterize that?
So Malvina also had done this previously. She'd done it in the early 50s, where she'd filed for divorce and then dropped it.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. But what I find fascinating is two things about this. Because they missed a court date, they were told to appear in court on January 30th for the missed court date.
The day after.
They were supposed to be in court the next day.
What if Charles hired that guy?
And Mildred stated that Malvina had been in a good mood lately because her and her husband had reached an agreement that would let her keep the house.
Oh, but they were still going ahead with the divorce.
Well, Charles is saying that they'd reconciled, and then Mildred has this piece of information that said they'd come to an agreement. So I don't know if Mildred had old news, or if maybe Malvina had made a change. I don't know what happened. So I would really like to know. Maybe Charles was just telling her, yeah, you can have the house, with no intention of ever going through with the divorce.
Right. Exactly.
I don't know when Mildred heard that information. So that's a big thing that's going on. They don't find anything else. That doesn't mean it's not happening, but they don't find anything else. Like they couldn't find a boyfriend that Malvina had, or anything like that, or a feud that was going on. Those are the things.
Those are the only things. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So the dates are a little sketch.
I know.
Gotta say.
They interview over 250 people in connection with this case. So
wow,
those aren't suspects necessarily, but they're their neighbors.
No, just gathering information. Yeah.
And through the course of the investigation, they give 11 lie detector tests, but they end up releasing each person. And there is a weird amount of weight put into these lie detector tests. What lie detector tests have been proven, they still do them because they can be a good tool for kind of knowing what questions to ask and things like that. But
it's more supplemental. It's not
they don't
indicative of something.
It's never just like, well, all the evidence says
you did it.
He did it, but the lie detector, okay. Well,
you're good. Please exit this way.
They look into, obviously, a bunch of people. So obviously first on their list is Charles himself, because you always look into the husband or wife.
Yep. And especially if they're having issues, man.
They're having issues, and there's that court date. Now, here's Charles' alibi for that day. So Charles was at work, and he worked in downtown Indianapolis. So he was about 20 to 25 minutes away from home. Maybe it was shorter in 1958, but let's say he was 20 minutes away from home. He worked at 420 West Merrill Street. And so then he went to Mike's Bar at 802 Southwest Street, which is very close. He went there at noon. Now, what we don't have in this timeline, but I assume investigators have, is when he left the bar. I don't know what time he
They
left the
have
bar.
to, because there'd be like someone serving him.
So he left the bar at some point, and then he went and got a shoe shine, he said, but he couldn't really remember the name of it. But I believe that he supplied them with the location because another article said that they were looking into the place, a filling station that had shoe shines. At 1:55, which is a long time, between 12 and 1:55, he shows up at his friend's house. His name is also Charles. So Charles Fleck is his name, so I'll call him Fleck. He shows up there at 1:55 and he leaves at 2:45. And this is confirmed by Fleck as well as Fleck's landlady. Now, from there, he goes back to work. He leaves at 2:45. He doesn't arrive back at work until 3:30, but he's spotted in the area at 3:20 at 202 Southwest Street. So I don't know, maybe he was just taking his time or running errands or something, but he gets back to the office around 3:30. Now, I would love to know more about Fleck because Charles is a 48-year-old man.
Yeah.
Fleck is 28, lives in a rooming house, and is unemployed. How do you know this?
His child? No. Yeah, maybe.
Well, the theory is that maybe Charles is gay, and in 1958, that's not something that is safe for him to reveal.
Right.
So was he having an affair with Charles?
Oh, wow.
Who is Charles? Because it's a weird, I mean, obviously you can have friends of any age, but usually when you're 48, you have friends either through your kids or through work. And that's it. And he was unemployed, but he had worked at a restaurant before that.
Or your neighbors, but they're not even neighbors.
No, they're not neighbors. And Charles lives 15 minutes from Mike's Bar. So he would have had to have traveled not in the direction of his house either. So if he went from Mike's Bar to Fleck's, it would have been 15 minutes east. And then Fleck's house is also 20 minutes from Charles's house.
Okay.
So Charles would need to, if Charles would ever be able to make this happen, he would need 40 minutes of transportation time to get to his house and then to get to Fleck's house. Now, detectives were suspicious also because they noticed slight discrepancies in Charles' initial statements. He said he entered through the front door, and then he told other detectives that he entered through the back door. They also thought he had possibly changed his shirt. He said he only took off his watch and then he went into the bathroom, but they thought his shirt looked fresh. I mean.
That's tough. It's tough to
How would you tell that?
In that moment, it's like, maybe you would not remember the past 30 minutes after you see your dead wife. Like when that adrenaline pumps, it's like you're in another state of being when you're like dealing with that kind of situation. And then when it goes away, you're like, what happened?
Yeah, exactly. So I can't, and I also don't know, like, well, how do you know that a shirt is fresh? I mean, I would love to know a little bit. I'd like to unpack that a little bit.
Do you need to get into the history of, like, what do they do with the
starch?
The collars? Yep.
Yeah. And did he have a button down? Probably in 1958. He probably did. Anyway, so Charles and his friend Fleck both agreed to take a lie detector test. They both passed. Charles was interviewed with the lie detector test included for well over 4 hours, and he cooperated every step of the way.
Yeah, but did they ask it, did you hire somebody? That's my theory right now.
Their second suspect that they talked to is a man named Robert Smith. So on February 20th, they arrest this man. He's a painter and a paper hanger, which just means that he does wallpaper. I had to look that up. I was like, that sounds so cool.
Paper hanger, I feel like it should be paper paster, which also sounds cooler.
I don't know. I don't know what they would call it today. He's married. He has 7 kids. He's very good at his job, and he had been hanging wallpaper on the 23rd, the 24th, and the 25th. And they had several witnesses who saw Smith and Malvina together a week before the murder outside the house, which Robert Smith is a black man, which really to me just speaks to the times more than anything, because who cares if
the
he was
family's
with her?
white.
Yeah, Malvina's white. Robert Smith is black. Who cares if they were together a week before the murder? That has absolutely nothing to do with the day of the
It's
murder.
the
Of course they
50s.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Of course they'd be together. They're picking out wallpaper together. That makes sense. And
But he was cleared too, right?
Smith is eventually cleared. He doesn't have a super strong alibi. He says he was at another job, and I guess they found some inconsistencies. But he was questioned for 10 hours.
Oh my God, they're really trying to break him.
Yeah, and then he was released the next day because he also took a lie detector test, I believe, and the only place where they saw anything at all was when he was asked about, did you ever drive in the same car as Malvina, which he denied. And of course he denied it. He's innocent, and he's trying to keep himself safe because he didn't want that to look bad. And people actually say it's important to reference that this is only 3 years after Emmett Till's murder.
Yeah, no, that's really a good point because we always see those in history books, but like it was not that long ago.
Yeah, and
happened.
so it's a good just check that Robert Smith was probably very scared about even admitting something like, yes, I was in a car with Malvina and we went to pick out wallpaper. That's not something he would want to come out on the course of a murder investigation.
Yeah, like he'll get freaking,
But he was cleared and he was released and never really looked at again. I don't think anyone believes that was a viable suspect. Now, the next suspect, though, is fascinating. On February 22nd, police have another suspect in question, and it's 40-year-old Leroy Pennick. Now, Pennick has worked at the Krutz home after the fire, but before the murder. And they found paint chips in Malvina's car that they ran tests on to see if they matched anything Leroy had. But I feel like that's something done by a person who's never painted houses before. Like, you're covered in paint.
Yeah.
I don't believe that the paint chips were an exact match, but that's going to be a hard one to do. Anyway, why police started looking at him is because shortly after the murder, he went to a bar and told the bartender, hey, can you say I was here the other day because I slapped a girl around and left fingerprints all over the place.
What?
And the bartender, instead of lying, called the police.
It's him.
Now, police gave Pennick 3 lie detector tests, and Pennick said, I don't care if you do. I know they're not admissible in court. I've been arrested 18 times.
Okay.
He's kind of bragging about it. They were all for minor charges, nothing for this.
Yeah.
But out of the 11 people who underwent the lie detector test, he was the only one who showed deception around the questions of the day of the murder. But for some reason, charges are dropped the following week. Okay?
What?
Yeah, I don't know. They also interviewed a random hitchhiker who was passing through the area that people had seen. They released him pretty quick. And then in June of that same year, a man named James Cook, who is a 26-year-old, confessed to the murder. So he was brought in on grand larceny, and he confessed about Malvina's murder. He said that they met in town, and they went to the house together to be together, and they got in a fight, and he got so angry that he blacked out. The next thing he remembers, Malvina was dead.
I don't think it works like that.
The next day, he says, oh, that's not true, but I do know who did kill her, and I'll tell you tomorrow.
What? This guy's just nuts.
Yeah. And so then the next day, he says, oh, it's my friend, and I'm not in good health, and my wife would be better off without me, and I'm going to die anyway.
Boy,
So I was trying to take the blame. He says it's one of his friends. They clear him. So then he says, oh, okay, now I really know. And he ends up giving 3 different names, all of whom are cleared really quickly. And the police are like, okay, you clearly just read the newspaper. Stop it. You're wasting our time.
God.
So that's the investigation. Now, I want to point out, I don't believe this has any bearing on the case, but it's fascinating to me that I came across it. So you've got the Krutz house fire in December of 1957.
Yes.
Then Malvina is murdered in January of 1958.
Yes.
Then in September of the same year, so September 1958, Charles Krutz, his mother Fanny, and Buddy are involved in a terrible car accident.
All 3 of them?
Yes, Fanny actually dies.
Oh my God.
Buddy suffers fractures in his arm and his leg and his shoulder. And Charles is in intensive care, and the papers report that he is not expected to pull through.
Wow.
Now he does. He actually lives until 1980. But what? Doesn't that
It's a
seem
rough year.
unbelievable that all
It's
of that would happen in 1 year?
Rough 12 months.
My mind, conspiracy theories are just running through my mind. Like, are all the things connected? Is it just bad luck?
No, I think it's
What?
bad luck.
I mean, it's crazy. And Mary, I mentioned Joan Risch. I mean, Joan Risch also had that fire in her childhood that was brought up a bunch. Anyway, so the leads pretty much stop after that guy confesses and then is just messing around. But in December of 1960, the papers report that the police found a lost tip. Apparently, a letter had been sent in right after the murder in response to a tip line offering a reward, and the letter had been misplaced.
Huh.
So they found it, and they post the entire letter in the newspaper. But essentially what happens is this person, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, but this person said that on the afternoon of the murder, they were on the street where the car was abandoned, and they were at a stoplight. They saw a slim, very dark complexioned man with a mustache, which, side note, fits the description pretty well of Leroy Pennick. He's also he's a tall, thin black man. This person locked the car, ran away, quote, like a speed racer, and threw something as they ran. The keys. Right, he's got the keys. The keys are never
This is
recovered.
after he got out of the car. Yeah, okay.
And the person said not long, like a few days later, he was at the same spot and he saw some children say, "Hey, somebody lost their keys." And that was the end of it. So they just found this tip in 1960. I don't know. Like, it seems unbelievable to me that person would drive by at both of those moments.
Yeah.
But also their explanation of seeing that person and then having them run makes a lot of sense as to what, because the car was abandoned 11 blocks, or it was clearly just to get away from the house.
If they're driving in that area, then maybe they do see the...
Yeah, maybe they go by it every day at the same time. So that tip is published in the paper. Now,
jeez,
nothing really comes from it. They ask for that person to come forward, but I don't think that person ever does. Or if they do, the police don't report it. Now, in March of 1962, so 4 years after the murder, one of the suspects is on the front page again. Leroy Pennick, who's now 44, is brought in and charged with murder of his common-law wife, Carol Jean Martin, age 27. She was found beaten in their apartment.
No.
Pennick made up all these excuses and lies, and he said she fell down the stairs.
Okay, that's a tired excuse.
Thrown down the stairs, and he put her in the living room, and then he brought a friend back. They were out drinking. They brought a friend back, and the friend immediately saw her and said, she's dead. And he called the police.
What the fuck is wrong with this guy?
So he was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison in January of 1963.
Bye, bitch.
Yeah. So that is the timeline, the evidence. And so I have so many questions. Like, how is the bathwater still warm with that timeline? Is that something that could possibly happen? That the bathwater would still be warm after so long of, assuming Malvina was dead between that phone call 12:45 and 1:40 when the women showed up. Like, could bathwater stay warm for that many hours?
The heat could be running because January.
And why are the pants wet and off of her body?
In the bathroom.
So, like, was she originally in the bathroom and then in the bedroom and then back in the, like...
Maybe.
And why was she clothed and in the bathtub at any point?
Because she was probably unconscious by the time she got in there.
Now, it's assumed, a lot of people assume that she was actually being held captive during the whole time Buddy was there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like, what's going on during that period? Like, she's trying to get him out of the house,
right? And so I would love to know, like, exactly what time did Buddy leave, but also, had she ever delivered his paper route for him before, ever in her life? Because I'm assuming
ask Buddy.
We used to get a 3:30, 4 o'clock paper that was delivered at that time. So I'm assuming that's the kind of paper he's delivering, is right after school he goes and gets the paper. So had she ever agreed to do that for him before? And then is she telling him that just so that he'll be so happy he won't ask her any more questions and just get out of the house? Or is she thinking when he comes home, maybe he needs her help getting set up on his paper route? Like, how does he get the papers? Does she have to go pick them up for him? Do they
Right.
get, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm wondering. Is she telling him that because she's thinking of the future? Is she just trying to appease him so he'll be so pumped that he'll just get out of there? And, or is she in the other theory is she in the bathroom with somebody else at her own will? Like, is she having an affair? And
Right.
Buddy came home
It could
earlier
be
than
both.
they thought, right?
It turned bad.
Is she legitimately in the bathroom? Like, is she taking a bath? Is she taking a shower? Did he hear running water? Does she have a stomach problem? Like, is she normally in the bathroom? Like, these are the things I don't know.
Why didn't they interview Buddy?
They did, but only for like 10 minutes.
I mean, I know he's only 10 years old, but like...
I know. So the second big thing I would love to know that question from Buddy, has like, what was normal behavior for Malvina at that time? And then the second big thing I'm struggling with is who answered the phone. Like, why people assume that it was the killer, but why in the world would the killer answer the telephone?
So I was thinking about that too through this whole thing. And it could be that it would set more alarm bells off for nobody to answer. So maybe he was trying to think like, oh, I can hold him off. But
if Malvina was really hurt in the background, then she's still alive. Why not tell her to answer the phone? Like, answer the phone and get rid of whoever it is.
So that's why I think like it probably was a willful affair up until a point.
Yeah, right. So then that's another theory. Like, was she in the bathroom hiding from Buddy, and then they came out and they were just walking around freely and the phone rang and she was in the middle of something and told him to get it? That seems dangerous too. What if it was Charles calling?
But why would she have an affair when she knows Buddy's home at the same time every day?
I know, that seems unlikely to me too, but maybe they lost track of time, or maybe, I don't know. I thought about this too. What about, because I don't believe this man would come forward, what if a worker had stopped by right after Buddy and was dropping something off for her or there to fix something, and Malvina's still being held captive in the bathroom and the phone rings and he's like, "Oh, Miss Malvina, the phone's ringing. Do you want," and she's telling him to answer it just to shut him up. Like, what if it was just not the killer? What if it was just a random dude who was stopping by, like another random worker or a person she was involved with, and then they just left the house and they never wanted to come forward because they didn't want to be considered a suspect because you're not. God. That's risky.
Yeah, it is risky.
And because the gentleman also said, which makes me think Malvina was because if she was doing something like, oh, well, Mrs. what do we call her? Mrs. Krutz is outside gardening right now or something. If she was in the bathroom, that's where you hesitate to say, well, she's, you're not going to say that. And he was trying to think of how to say she could come to the phone.
She's pooping.
Yeah, right? Like, like, what do you say? Yeah. So then who's leaving the house at 1:40? Now, obviously, theories are that that's the killer. That one makes sense to me. But there's also theories out there that maybe this was also a random worker who went to the house and happened to discover the body and thought, I'm out of like, nope, I'm out of here. I'm not getting blamed for this, and jetted. But it's possible, but I don't think so, simply because the bathroom door was closed, and I don't think that a worker would open the bathroom door, because if Malvina is home, they're not going to walk in to the bath or the, whatever's going on in there. So I don't know if I buy that theory. So the possible suspect theories that like circulate the internet, right? Some people think that Buddy is suspicious. The son.
Give me a break.
That's how I feel about it too. I think he's 10 years old. They think that it's weird that he didn't go to the bathroom for 90 minutes or that he wasn't concerned by his bedroom. And
have you ever met a 10-year-old boy right after school who wants to get to his TV program? This is the 50s. Like, this is how it works.
That is actually what I wrote on my notes. I said, I don't think these people have spent time with young kids, because
that's a joke.
I was injured one time, and I know my son's, a lot younger, but I was injured one time, and I said, oh, can you please go get your dad outside? And he said, I'm playing right now, and just left me on the floor. I was like, seriously? I was like, okay. In my head, I thought, well, once I recover from this, I'm going to have to talk about emergencies. But I just think exactly that. And it's 1958. His mom probably was in charge of the housekeeping. So when he sees the
Yeah.
bedroom is messy, he's not thinking like, oh, I better clean it up.
Yeah,
He's thinking,
right.
weird. Mom didn't clean my bedroom today. I can't wait to
Yeah.
watch TV. And he's just
Yep.
going to sit in front of the
That's
TV.
exactly it.
He's 10 years old. So I'm just throwing it out there. I also feel the same way you. Now,
Yeah,
the other
bollocks,
conspiracy,
you silly people.
the other conspiracy theory is, what about Mildred and Florence? A lot of this timeline is built off their whole story. What if they're lying?
And it was a double murder.
What if they're, well, a double team? But I don't think that's the case either. But I'm throwing it out there because people talk about it online. But the teenager pretty much backed up their story that he also saw them pull in at 1:40.
Oh, yeah, and leave.
But people are really curious, like, why did they come over? If what Mildred reported was accurate,
Did they not?
then why would they even be there at 1:30?
I feel like they needed to press Mildred more. Like, what's the story? Just say exactly what you heard.
Yeah. And it's possible, too, that Mildred was just well, I'm going to go see that house. I don't know what Malvina's talking about. I'm going over there. Because they lived so close.
Yeah, and
do you know,
nosy neighbors.
Maybe Malvina did say exactly what Mildred reported, and Mildred thought it was weird. So she thought, well, I'm just going over there. Maybe she thought Malvina was trying to like show her up or ignore her, and she just marched. That's it. I'm going over there, and she can't stop me. I mean, that's possible too.
Yeah.
Now, the other, obviously, is that Charles was having an affair, possibly was gay, and did not want any of this information coming out in the divorce proceedings. Or that Malvina was having an affair, and he was upset about this. Or both. Now, we talked about Charles's alibi, so there is that kind of wishy-washy part. If he left the bar at 12:30 or 12:45 or anything like that, he could potentially get to the house, by 1 o'clock and then be back to Fleck's house by 1:55 if that shoe shine didn't pan out.
Right.
Didn't pan out. And maybe he was going home not with that intention, right? He could have been going home and discovered Malvina with another man. Maybe if she was in the bathroom under her own, will, then maybe he found her having an affair. So those are some of the theories that pop out. Also, did Charles hire somebody, which you mentioned earlier? And then obviously Leroy Pennick is a really strong suspect because
he's probably my top one.
Yeah, he killed his own girlfriend by the same method that Malvina was killed by, which is just she was beaten.
And didn't he tell the bartender, I just slapped up someone?
Yeah, that's why he was under suspicion. Anyway, that's why I'd love to know more. Did he say what day to say that he was there? Was it the same day? Because if it's the same exact day as the murder, then hello.
Okay, but just like in the Jessup case, like why aren't we using more DNA stuff to our advantage? You said there's like 6 sets of fingerprints that didn't belong to the household members. Are we not like continually trying to run this against the system as it updates?
Well, that's what I wonder because they kept releasing all these people, I wonder if those 3 fingerprints didn't match any of the suspects, which doesn't necessarily mean anything. Those 3 fingerprints could have been a random person,
could be the workers.
Yeah, a random worker who was there that Malvina didn't even hire.
It's unfortunate timing that they're doing all these renovations.
So it could have been someone who just was by the house once and said, "Oh, let me show you. Yeah, we could do this to here," and it just gave a quote or an estimate.
Yeah.
And so I'm guessing that the fingerprints didn't match, but that doesn't mean he didn't do it. It just means they didn't find his fingerprints, right? So, and then also the question comes like, how did this come about? So did he go there with the intention of killing Malvina? Were him and Malvina having an affair?
Right.
Did he go there hoping him and Malvina would have an affair and it didn't go as he planned and he got angry? Or could Charles and Leroy have been in on this together? But I feel like you don't go to a house without a murder weapon. If you're a hired,
I see what you're saying.
If you're a hired hitman.
Like just shoot her.
Now, I wonder if she is having an affair and she's in the bathroom hiding. That doesn't make sense to me because if you like you said, she had the sandwich prepared, so she knew Buddy was coming home.
Yeah.
Also, why would you hide in the bathroom together? You would put that guy in your bedroom and say, stay in here. My son doesn't go in my bedroom. And then you would move around the house normally.
Right, so you already think so there's some foul play at that point.
I think at that point that she is being held against her will would be my guess. But it's like, why? So that means that, they say they made the note of the breakfast dishes not being done. So if it was an affair that went sour,
Yeah.
maybe he was there early. Maybe he came
Early,
over at
right.
9
Like, we're like,
o'clock.
"Okay, our window is 9 to 11:30."
Yeah, he came over at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if this drawing is to scale, but the drawing of the house, in the master bedroom, they have 2 twin beds. In Buddy's room,
What?
they draw a big bed. So maybe they were actually in Buddy's bedroom.
Gross.
Well, I'm just throwing it out there. And then they got into a fight right before Buddy came home from school, and so that man wasn't leaving. And then he held her in the bathroom.
Do we know what kind of sandwich it is?
No, but
Was
somebody did ask that because I think the
because,
people,
like, you could, like,
yeah,
tell the
how soon did
temperature
you
of the
make it? Yeah.
mayo or something like that.
Yeah, no, I know somebody did ask that. Because, yeah, if it was a peanut butter and jelly, because she could have made that at 11 o'clock, and
Right.
just left it out.
But
But
I don't even know if Buddy would remember that.
yeah,
Just
so
because it's so traumatizing.
yeah, so like, were they together? And she was expecting him to leave at 11:30, and then they got into a fight, and he lost it, and he hit her, and then he pushed her into the bathroom and told her to be quiet, get rid of the kid. And that's why I really want to know too if the water was running, because is he running the water to kind of muffle the sounds?
Oh.
Right? That'd be a good way to kind of muffle the noise. And also because the divorce date is so strange. But you'd think, we always look at Charles in that case, but you'd think it'd work the other way around. If she was having an affair and this person knew that tomorrow she was supposed to go in court and it was up to Malvina if she dropped it or if she pushed through with it, he would be equally as mad potentially. Where he would be telling her, you need to go to court tomorrow and go through with this. And she could have told him, no, I'm not going to. Like I told you, this is it. This is over. Or I told you, this is how it's going to be. I'm going to stay married. And he got upset. It could also have been the driving force for somebody she was having an affair with, is what I'm saying.
Right. Man.
But what's so weird to me is if you believe that and he's holding her hostage in the bedroom or in the bathroom, and then Mildred hears her on the phone.
I know.
That means he's answering the phone, like you said, to see if anybody's coming over. And this is where I'd love to know more about the phone conversation, because if he answered the phone, then he potentially knows someone is coming at 1:30. So what the heck is he doing from 12:45 to 1:40 before he hightails it out of there? Why?
I don't know.
Why would it take so, like, what is he doing? He knows people are coming over.
It's murdering.
Or did he think that people weren't supposed to? And like I said, Mildred just forced her way in there anyway.
Yeah.
Because maybe Malvina's statements were heard correctly, but don't make sense because she was trying to protect Mildred and Florence.
Oh.
Right? Like maybe she's saying,
Yeah.
oh, I've got to drop Buddy off at school, pick you up at 1:30. And they would have thought, well, that doesn't make sense, but we'll just wait for her here.
Maybe.
Right? Or tell her not to come pick me up today, because Mildred would have said, well, what is she talking about? Why? We're not picking her up. We're going to her house. And
She
maybe
should have done
that.
the code words.
And maybe that was what she was trying to do.
So do you think the guy was still in the bathroom? No, he drove out. He drove out.
He drove.
Right
I think he's
there.
who drove away.
How do they not like have a facial description? Like, this is ridiculous.
Well, yeah, you only have the teenager who thought he might be black. But if they're
Right.
also, I feel like people, eyewitness accounts are so unreliable.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'd love to know if the tip was legitimate that they lost, because that man actually saw a gentleman come out from the car.
If they, quote, lost that tip, then I feel like that's collusion with the killer.
Well, they say it was lost or not followed up on, which you have to think that probably was easier to do back in the day. I mean, these are paper letters that are coming in.
Yeah, that's true.
Pennick looks really the most likely based off what he said to the bartender, based off his history a couple years later. But I still don't quite understand how it happened like that.
Yeah, the timeline's weird.
Were they having a relationship?
I think it was a blend of willful and unwillful to get in that situation.
But I don't think that Malvina would have, like you said, I don't think she would lose track of time. I don't think she would risk Buddy seeing somebody at the house. But that doesn't, like I said, that doesn't mean that it just pushes the timeline for when they got into a fight. right? They
Right.
got into a fight at 11:55, and then Buddy walks up the driveway.
Just don't understand how there's not any DNA evidence. Like, why don't you run the hair follicle?
Yeah, I don't know if they still have it. I mean, I'd love to see
I
genetic
mean, good
genealogy.
Lord.
And then why are her pants wet? That one really bothers me. So she starts out in the bathroom, and is he pushing her in the bathtub or the shower or something? And then she fights back and escapes
Right.
and gets to the bedroom. And that's when he
Could
rips
be.
the pants off.
Well, because remember, the sign of the struggle's in there.
Yeah. So why would I don't understand if he took the pants off in the bathtub to make it look like it was, to build up the theory of sexual assault. I don't know why you would, but if you're a man doing that, but you would just leave the pants in the bathroom. You wouldn't put them back into the bed. They wouldn't be in the bedroom. So I have to assume that it happened in the bedroom, that the pants were taken off there. And if that's the case, then how are they already wet?
Hmm.
So that's why I wonder if maybe he had the water running. They were fighting in the bathroom and she happened to get wet because she fell in the shower or fell in the tub, and then she was fighting back and ran into the bedroom. Now, police investigators think that the struggle started in the bedroom, and then she was knocked unconscious, and then she was carried to the bathroom and came to, and that's why the towel rack, she fought back, and that's
Oh.
why the towel rack is ripped out. But that doesn't make sense to me why her pants would be off in the bedroom. That's the part that I can't. And she still had her shoes on, which is hard to do. Right? Which means that's why they're probably torn a little. You really have to, rip
Oh,
them
I
off
see what you're
and pull.
saying.
That's why they're inside out.
Yep.
So it's not like
Yep.
Malvina did that at any point on
Yeah,
her
you're
own.
right. You're right. Ugh, I don't know.
It has been messing with my brain for weeks. I can't understand how somebody wasn't charged with this crime.
Yeah, that's wild. That is really wild.
And so sad that, that whole family, I told you, Malvina's mother had died, her brother had died, now Malvina.
Yeah.
It's so sad. I wish I knew if they still had any of the DNA evidence or any of the evidence available so that they could do more testing or genetic genealogy or something.
That's what I'm
Just to know what
saying. I
happened.
feel like they gotta be able to pull something.
Yeah.
Especially if they have Leroy, they're gonna have all his DNA.
Well, all of these
sampled.
people associated are passed on now.
Oh, except for Buddy.
I believe Buddy has also passed away.
Oh,
There is not a lot on him, but I did find one note of that he had passed away a few years ago.
gotcha.
But there was not an obituary or anything, so I can't say for sure, but it had the same birth date. So what are you thinking? You think it's Pennick?
Yeah.
And not Charles now?
No. Because no, I think it was probably not Charles.
Yeah. That timing is so crazy though, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
And I would love to know the fact that it said divorce proceedings and a restraining order. I would love to know what's in that restraining order. What does that even mean? You can't get a restraining order just because you don't want to see a person anymore. There has to be a reason.
Right. Charles could have been a bad partner.
Yeah. I know that's what we get so caught up in is everybody can be bad.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're the murderer.
Right.
Right. It's not this good
It's
and
not
bad.
black and white.
Yeah. Charles could have been abusive to her and hurt her, and she was in a terrible situation, but just had nothing to do with the murder.
Right.
It could have been somebody else entirely.
Just feels like the cops on the case just, I don't know. Feels like just like it wasn't a lot of pressure on it. And
I know.
they didn't push hard enough.
I know. They interviewed Charles for 4.5 hours, and I thought, oh, that's a good amount of time. But then they interviewed the paper hanger for 10 hours. And he...
Well, because he's black, probably.
Yeah, and he had nothing to do with it other than the fact that he'd seen Malvina a week ago, a couple of days ago.
Right.
It's just, I was like, maybe you could have pushed a little harder on Charles then at that point. There's not a ton. This is not a case that's covered a lot, but you can find so many newspaper articles on it, which is why I was in this rabbit hole for so many weeks. There's so much information in the papers, more than they would publish today, I think, which is probably, because they need to hold back information so that they don't get these kind of cook confessions from that guy did.
Right. God, that
where he seemed to know everything that had ever happened. Anyway, I would love to see this and the Joe and Rish case get solved at some point. I know
That
they're
would
really
be
cold
really,
cases
really cool.
now, but both these cases are very similar.
Yeah.
They're not related in any way, but just they're very similar in the way that they feel.
I bet there is somebody who knows what happened. Or maybe they're not alive anymore.
Yeah, that's the stuff that you can't get from reading these papers.
Right.
You know, what were some of the things that you just can't get that people don't report? You know, was Leroy an attractive man that Malvina would be attracted to? I don't know. I can't tell from that. All you see is a mugshot. You know, was he
Not the
charismatic?
most pretty picture.
Yeah, was he
mugshot.
charismatic? Was he funny? Like, did they seem to flirt together? You know, was Charles gay? If he really was and had a boyfriend on the side, I feel like some people are going to know that.
Did they interview Fleck?
Yeah, they gave him a lie detector test too, and he passed it. It just seemed, I want to know more about that relationship. Why are they friends? How do they know each other? All right, do you have any last words for us? This one's a long one.
I've been trying to think. I don't think I do. I mean, I just to the investigators, do whatever you can. Get all DNA and save it, because you never know in 100 years what the technology is going to be.
Right? That's what's so hard. Like, they can't even imagine the advancements that would be made.
Right. So it's just, I mean, we saw this in another episode, but just like doing your job well in many different capacities can just make such a difference for people.
Yeah.
Even if like you're a waitress and you go above and beyond, you really like make somebody's day and maybe turn them around from doing something terrible. I don't know. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook at
Tea Time Crimes.
You can email us at
teatimecrimes@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
And please help support the show by leaving a rating or a review anywhere that you get your podcasts. And
even if you go beep, boop, bop, bop, beep, enter.
She really loves to
5-star to be great.
Write those reviews for you guys. All right, who should listen today?
Contractors, subcontractors, school teachers, friends, and how about we throw in a carpenter
and paper hangers.
Oh yeah, paper hangers.
Whatever.
I want to change it to paper paster.
Paper pasters. Poor guy. I'm glad he was clear.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Goodbye.